Hello, friends. A few weeks ago, I made a presentation to a group of notaries public about Alzheimer's disease. I was asked to help them recognize when a potential signatory might have cognitive issues. I was not asked to tell them how to do their jobs, just present the information. So a notary public is tasked with ascertaining whether a potential signatory understands the document that they are being asked to sign. So we spent a lot of time talking about what kind of signs that they might pick up on when they're interviewing someone. Hello, I'm Dr. Renee Harmon. I'm the author of Surfing the Waves of Alzheimer's. It's a teaching memoir about my husband Harvey and his time with younger onset Alzheimer's disease. And last autumn, I wrote a blog and recorded it about the earliest warning signs that I had with Harvey. And I'll provide a link to that blog post in the description of today's video. One of the warning signs is problems with language, which was not something that I noticed with Harvey right off the bat. But as I was talking to this group of notaries public, we realized that language is probably going to be the most common deficit that they will notice. They're not going to notice visual spatial problems or problems with normal tasks. They're going to notice language difficulties. So what I want to do today is kind of go through some of the more common language difficulties that a person living with dementia may exhibit. So the most common is word finding, and we've all experienced this. This is that sensation of knowing that there's a word we want, it's not coming, it's on the tip of our tongue, and I will say something like, it's one syllable and it starts with a letter M, and then it will come to me minutes or hours later and I'll blurt it out. Well, with persons who are experiencing cognitive difficulties, they don't necessarily remember that they had forgotten the word. That, in medical terminology, is called anomia, which literally translates no word. So to combat that, they will often talk around the word, and this is termed circumlocution, which means talking around, and they can be so skilled at it that you don't even notice it. But they may say something like, oh, that thing on the wall with numbers and dates, or zebra might become the horse with stripes. They may substitute a word. It may be a word that's similar in its character. So, for example, television might become computer. They might substitute a word that sounds similar, that may start with the same sound, so that floor might become flower. Sometimes they'll mix the sounds all together. Once Harvey said sibling instead of blessing. Sometimes what comes out is complete nonsense, just a jumble of words when they're trying to come up with a particular word. Sometimes they will just blank altogether and conversation will come to a halt. It can be because of word finding, but it also could mean that they have lost track of the conversation, and because they can't hold information in their brain for as long as you or I can, they'll lose track of the conversation and it'll just come to a halt. Or conversation may range all over the place as their brain is trying to track where they're going. Another thing you might see with language is replying yes or no to every yes or no question. This is something Harvey did, and I think is a way to be agreeable. He would just answer yes with anything I asked him, if I asked him this way. Other patients living with Alzheimer's disease will say no to every time you ask them a yes or no question. And the notaries public knew to ask open-ended questions when they were trying to ascertain whether somebody had any cognitive difficulties. And I will just say here, though, that later on the disease, it would be a kindness not to ask open-ended questions and to ask them simple yes or no questions. But early on, that's something to be aware of. And if they answer yes to everything you ask, like the notaries public realized, it's going to make you think that they understand what you're saying. Another thing that you may notice is echolalia, and this is where they repeat back verbatim what you've said to them. And again, this can make them appear as if they understand what you've said when they're really just repeating back to you what you have said. And they cannot repeat back what you've said in their own words. And sometimes language can be such a difficult task for persons living with dementia that they may choose to be silent, and they may rely on their care partners to talk for them. And this can make them appear unfriendly or indifferent or even aloof. So just be mindful of that if you come across someone who appears to be kind of aloof. So in conclusion, I would say that this discussion with the group of notaries public reminded me that we all come in contact in our daily lives with people who may have cognitive issues. And it is a kindness to have patience and compassion in our conversations with all persons, even with strangers. Thank you. Be well and keep your balance.